everybody, welcome back to another episode of Debt Collection 101 here on R But You. I know it's been a while since we've done a video, but we have an awesome guest here who I've gotten to know over the past, I think I met you a couple years ago now it's been,
Yeah.
but Shantanu, the CEO of Prodigal, a speech analytics company. But yeah, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. And I have a great co-host here, Tracy, of course. Everybody knows her.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess for anyone who doesn't know you, could you give us a little bit of a background on your company and then specifically like what problems your software solves for collection agencies?
Absolutely. So Prodigal is a collection intelligence system. Speech analytics is the first of many things that we have on our very, very ambitious roadmap. But the vision is essentially helping collection agencies with actionable insights that like maximize revenue, optimize operations, and minimize risk. So that's really quite a mouthful, but essentially what has really changed in the last 5 to 7 years is not only is there an explosion of how much data is being captured, but we as humans also are now able to kind of analyze, mine, and monitor that data to generate insights that are very, very actionable. You can act on it, and you can change your whole operations. Where we come in is we provide the tools for agencies to do that. So that's about us. We've been, as a company, been around for over 2 years now and work with dozens of agencies already, arming them with these insights. The good thing about us is we are exclusively focused on collections, and that lends us a lot of advantages. Just very simply, all of our data, all of our training data is drawn from the ARM or the collections world. So our models are more tuned to those things. Our insights are far more specific. And more importantly, we just go much deeper. Like we go a mile deep on a lot of the things that are relevant for the collection industry, but might not be a concern for other people.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And on that point, can you tell us about some common challenges that agencies can address using these insights and AI?
Yeah. So the first and foremost thing that comes to anyone's mind is around compliance. Collections is obviously a fairly regulated industry, and you have to deal with a host of federal and state level regulations, be it the FDCPA, TCPA, or something even very local. Great example is the New York language code that kind of came up, went into force at the end of June. Now that's something that the New York state requires you to offer for anyone who mentions they're not familiar speaking with English. How does an agency which is operating nationally, which might have people in California calling into New York, know that their agents are actually following up and saying the right things, giving the right options? Just first and foremost, and that is where speech analytics can really like be a game changer. It will tell you who do you offer it to, what do you say to them, and every single time that doesn't happen, it creates a coaching opportunity for you to go back to the team and tell them, no, the laws changed. This is how you do it. Because the intent of actually like improving counts for a lot, and that is where first and foremost compliance is where we help with. But that's just the minimizing risk leg of the triad that we do. The second is optimizing operations. Like agencies see a lot of agent turnover. People come and go. Not everyone performs the same way. So we help them monitor agent performance at a fairly granular level, so you can know what they're doing at any given point of the day, any day of the week. Identify opportunities where they might be spending far too much time in either wrap up or just kind of taking too much time on a single call to close. All of those things kind of roll up into agent productivity scores that we arm agencies with. So this typically used by like COOs or director of operations at these agencies to kind of make sure that their net collections per agent are increasing month on month. And then the last thing which we really, where the machine learning really shines and was really not even possible like 3 years back, is on the borrower side of things. The biggest pain point that agencies have is time spent collecting borrowers who naturally or for like reasons beyond their control don't have the ability to pay. But just understanding that and like focusing your time and energy on people who do want to pay and have the ability to pay is the biggest driver of revenue. And we help agencies by identifying such a borrowers so that they can reach out to these borrowers at the right time using the right channel, say the right things and settle for the right amount.
Awesome. Yeah. So when people think of speech analytics, I think the most common thing is like, oh, compliance. Like everyone
Yeah,
always relates it to that. And I think a lot of people forget that there's a lot of things that you can use in speech analytics to boost revenue and do that. So I guess, can we dive a little more into that?
yeah.
Like what are some specific examples that, you know, how data analytics can really maximize a collections agency and their revenue?
Great question. So a lot of people, let's take a quick example. A lot of people, just a lot of borrowers, that is, will give excuses that are different each time. So those people don't have the intent to pay, or they'll say things that are inconsistent with what they have said in the past. Uh, every agency has a slightly different way of handling them, but all in all, we have found by mining, like we mine over 5 million calls every single month, we found that these borrowers are typically not worth following up on because it takes like far greater time and energy to follow up on that. So we really help agencies spot the diamonds from the dust, so to say, where we tell them that these are the borrowers who are really well intentioned. They have shown a very consistent storyline. What they're saying in the month of June is consistent with what they said in April, is also consistent with what they said in January. Piece it all together and really arm them with things like, these guys are willing to meet you halfway. Can you really figure out something? So we provide them scores and strategies that will help them identify such borrowers. We call them prodigal primes. These are borrowers who might just be like 10 to 15% of your total portfolio, but will make up like 80 to 90% of your gross collections. So our machine learning model really helps identify that. So you can focus your efforts on these prodigal primes. Further, you can actually do a bunch of very interesting things once you've identified them. You can uh, put more data resources behind them. You can go and find out, get like special offers from the original creditors for these prodigal primes. You could put your kind of A-list frontline senior collectors to kind of reach out to them so that they're more likely to bring in and close the account quicker. So once you've identified a small sample of people who are going to make up like a disproportionate share of your gross collections, really opens up a lot of new levers that were previously not possible because you had one size fits all model.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you just talked a lot about different data points there, and I know just from my own experience and also talking with people in the industry, it can seem kind of overwhelming to have all these different data, and you're not sure how to act on them, or you're not sure what to do with the information. So,
Yeah.
are there any metrics that are the most important when it comes to determining agent productivity?
Absolutely. So agent productivity is the second of the three legs that we talk about. But in fact, it is actually the most simplest to understand, and it is the easiest to act upon. A quick example is wrap up time. In a typical like 8 to 9 hour shift, how much of your time is being spent actually speaking with borrowers versus how much of your time is spent in wrap up versus how much of your time is spent in not ready, is a great metric to just track agent productivity. And we have seen great results from our customers who track them on a day-to-day basis on an agent level. Uh, going in typically, like when we start working with customers, we'll see the wrap up time numbers be as high as like 35% of the day. So to give you context, like 35% of an 8 hour day, almost 3 hours really, is spent in wrap up. And this could be a mixture of posting payments, taking down notes, and a host of different leakages. By just monitoring and comparing your best agents and setting that as the benchmark, is inspiring for other people to kind of kind of aspire to. Uh, Once you kind of said that, okay, across the board, I want every agent to spend at least 40%, 50% of their day on the call and less than 25% of the day in wrap up, then it is very easy to monitor which agents kind of meet those benchmarks at every single day, and which of them do not. And once you kind of know that, you can talk to people, understand what problems they have. The problems they have also typically are very, very straightforward. Sometimes it's a systems problem. Sometimes they have access, like, but in times like these, they might just take longer to connect to the system, take notes, and so on and so forth. So that is a problem that's fixed by like better connectivity or better VPN. Sometimes it's a comprehension problem where they're like, I'm not really sure what to write in a wrap-up note, and I actually end up like rewriting it a bunch of times. So that's a coaching opportunity where like, this is how we do it. Why don't you do it starting tomorrow? Or sometimes it's just an agent playing hooky, and just knowing that at a very granular level allows you to kind of tell them that, hey, we are watching this. It is really in everyone's best interest that you do not spend your time between calls, but spend it on the calls, and kind of drive performance. Um, within literally months of using our product, we have seen average wrap up times go down meaningfully and average in call times go up meaningfully, and that again very directly correlates to your cross collections.
Nice. Yeah. Good old fashioned peer pressure, with the wrap up time.
but more than the peer pressure, I think it's often almost always more often than not the case that people just have like some systems or process problem, and once you identify it, people
Yeah.
just keep up like, hey, I just took like 5 minutes just getting into the VPN or something along those lines.
Right. So,
I was just going to say, people don't really want to change their process unless you show them hard data that it's affecting their revenue. So I think that's awesome.
And again, so one of the things people use Prodigal for is tying it to their bonus, like monthly bonus. So obviously a lot of the monthly bonus is tied to gross collections, but they'll almost always have a portion that is tied to compliance, productivity, and a lot of these things. So the smartest people I have met in this industry say that you can't always control the outputs, but you can always control the inputs. And inputs are measured around like wrap up time. Inputs are measured around total call time. Inputs are measured around just like, are you giving the recording disclosure every single time? That is something in your control. You do that thing right, the output will take care of itself.
Right. Yeah. So when you're, over the years of, dealing with speech analytics and everything, and like listening to so many conversations, I'm sure, like, do you see a common roadblock that collectors are running into that keep their conversation from converting? Or is it always something different? Is there something that stands out as like most common thing that agencies can fix?
So yeah, the most, I actually, we've done a lot of studies around this, and I'll split the answer based on experience of the agents. The most experienced agents often find their hands tied by the law of averages. What I mean by that is the original creditor will kind of give them certain leeway on what kind of payment plans they can accept, what kind of things they can settle for. And the experienced collectors have identified a great opportunity, and they really want to bring it to close, but then they actually do not have the freedom, and the processes are not really set up for them to do it quickly on the same call. It's not the same call resolution. So that's the reason like experienced collectors have figured out that this person is very comfortable paying $80 per month and feel like they can bring it to a close, but then they have to go back to a supervisor, or they oftentimes have to go back to the original creditor to get that permission. So having all the tips, having like better understanding, better scoring at their fingertips, and show or like even a calculator of sort that actually picks in information from a bunch of these places and gives them a decision on the fly, on the same call, while they are like synchronously talking to a borrower, will move the needle materially for experienced borrowers. For inexperienced borrowers, the case is often coaching. Coaching is like a massive opportunity, and things like active listening, things like showing empathy to the borrower, that is also something we monitor and map, and we see like wide differences between good agents who obviously end up staying longer, and experienced agents on one hand versus like new agents on the other hand, who don't appreciate it as much. So the biggest bottleneck for new agents is often just like very active listening. You're there to solve a problem for someone who's delinquent. You're not just there to like rush through your talk track, and just understanding that makes a big difference. So monitoring for empathy, active listening, acknowledgement. Like if the borrower tells you something in their lives, it is more important to acknowledge. If they had a trouble, it is more important to do that, reciprocate that feeling, rather than just kind of like checking off things off your talk track.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it goes right off that. Tracy did an episode recently about empathy with Mary Shores, and a lot of this plays right into that. This is just the technology that lets you monitor those things that she says are super important.
Right, exactly. So glad to hear. Yeah, absolutely. I think by helping people monitor it, it's funny, like most of our customers for the long, they're like, we always knew that we wanted to do it, but never knew how. And once you kind of give them the tool, they get so excited by it. They're like, now I want to do ABC. Now I really want to completely like change how my bonus structure works and pick in inputs from these things and just incentivize people on very, very directly on these metrics.
Awesome. So we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but can you talk about how agent monitoring tools can help collection agencies with higher productivity?
Yeah, so we touched upon average wrap time and stuff like that, but where we are going and we are very excited about it is why do even agents need to take notes in this day and age? So one of the things that we are working on is automated note taking. What that will do is at the end of the call, notes are pre-populated, and to begin with, will give the agents the ability to kind of override things or like add their own dash of personality to the agent notes. But essentially, instead of an agent note taking minutes, can it take like 10 seconds? That will be like a massive game changer for the industry, where the moment the call ends, like the notes are popped up and you can just hit submit. Not just it will not just save time because it is pre-populated, but the other thing is obviously on a long call, an agent is like really good if he's actually listening to the call and not really taking notes on the call. So we make sure that nothing gets missed, because there's almost like someone riding pillion with the agent and taking notes. We most common see this at times when someone will make a typo in the email address. So if they're given a bankruptcy attorney's phone number, they might take down a digit wrong because they obviously are listening to the borrower all that time. Having like a tool like ours, take notes on the fly, make sure that none of these things fall through the cracks and you're able to kind of really not miss anything of value on every single call. Big game changer for agent productivity.
I want that for my meetings too.
No.
I hate taking notes.
Yeah.
There's so many times you'll take notes and then you just zone out while you're taking them, and someone's talking, you forget what, you're not listening to that, you miss something important. Yeah. So I could see you're taking notes on a collection call and they mention something compliance related and you just zoned out, and because your notes and
it's funny, right? I mean, things different people have different one of the things people want to know is are you getting paid right now, and how much are you getting paid? And it's like someone saying 600 versus 1600. If you're not listening attentively, like microsecond later, you're like, was it 600 or 1600?
Yeah,
big difference on like what you can what payment plan you can offer and so on and so forth.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, contact solutions in general, like, is a huge expense for collection agencies, and like their phone systems, their dialers, everything like that. Like their agencies spend a ton of money on this stuff, and it's probably one of their biggest expenses next to payroll. So, what do you say to an agency that's hesitant to making this investment into analytics software that's, that goes on top of an already large expense? What would you say to someone?
So, firstly, we have like a body of work with our existing customers who actually have seen ROI on these things off the bat. And some of the things are very easy to see. For example, in borrower scoring, if you score someone well, you are focused, you get faster liquidation. So instead of most agencies have a liquidation curve. So instead of liquidating 80% of your portfolio in 6 weeks, now you're liquidating it in 4 weeks. That's basically a lot of money coming in through the door quicker and allows you to kind of roll through, pick up a new portfolio, and so on and so forth. So knowing who to contact, what to say to them, right time. So right time to call to them, right things to say, and right payment plan to offer makes a big difference as to like the total gross collections that you collect in any month. So that in itself pays for the analytics. On the second leg, which is the agent productivity, where things are going, your agents are just we have shown agent average call time kind of go up from like the 30s to like the 40% of the day. Massive game changer, because you incur your ability to kind of collect payments is only limited to the time you're on the phone, really. So if you total time someone is on the phone goes up by like 30-40%, that really opens up the total top of the funnel opportunities by that much more. And then compliance is almost table stakes. Everyone needs to do it, and every time you call someone who you're not supposed to call is a $1,500 fine, really. So the risk you expose yourself to by not having some of these things is pretty massive. And we have seen that, particularly given the crisis that we are living through, a lot of people have suddenly like realized that what was previously like they could take a walk up and down the floor a couple of times a day, and they actually had a fairly good gut understanding of what was happening on the calls. But with everyone remote, or like most of the team remote, that's no longer possible. And you really need to, if you even want to know what's happening on the call, if your agents are like taking long coffee breaks or just not really like completing calls the way they should, it is incredibly important for you to have like intelligent systems in place in your shop, in your shop floor.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I appreciate you coming on and talking about speech analytics. That was awesome to hear more about it in detail. There's so much data involved in it. It's crazy. And it's so many things that people don't realize that it can help them with. I think, I feel like, again, like I mentioned earlier, like speech analytics, a lot of people think compliance, they don't really loop it in with actual ROI and like increasing their revenues. So it's good to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. I think love what you guys are doing and love the whole brand that you're building as well. And it was great chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thanks, Shantanu. Thanks, Tracy. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, we'll put your contact information below. And yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone watching, see ya.
Definitely.